A DNA test destroyed a family fortune. Two brothers. $10 million. And a secret that had been buried for over 40 years. But when the verdict came down, no one saw it coming. This is the Marcus inheritance case, and it proves that blood doesn't always mean family. Stuart Marcus was a successful businessman who built his wealth from the ground up. By the time he retired, he'd amassed a fortune worth tens of millions of pounds. He had a wife, Patricia, and two sons, Edward and Jonathan. To most people, the Marcus family looked perfect. Wealthy. Close-knit. The kind of family you'd see in magazines. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Cracks that would eventually tear everything apart. In 2010, Stuart did what many wealthy parents do, he created a trust. This wasn't just any trust. It was worth over £10 million, and it was designed to provide for his two sons after he passed away. The language was simple: the trust would be divided equally between his children. Edward and Jonathan would each get half. Clean. Fair. Or so everyone thought. When Stuart died in 2022, both brothers expected to inherit their shares without issue. But Jonathan had other ideas. Here's where things get dark. Jonathan had always suspected something was off about Edward. Maybe it was how different they looked. Maybe it was whispers he'd heard growing up. Whatever it was, Jonathan became convinced that Edward wasn't actually their father's biological son. So Jonathan made a decision that would change everything. He demanded a DNA test. Edward was blindsided. Imagine being told by your own brother that he doesn't think you're really family. But the damage was done. The test was ordered. When the results came back, Jonathan's suspicions were confirmed. Edward and Jonathan shared the same mother, Patricia, but they had different fathers. Edward was not Stuart's biological son. The affair had happened decades ago, back in the 1970s. Patricia had been involved with a solicitor from Norwich, and Edward was the result. Stuart had raised Edward as his own, never knowing, or perhaps choosing not to know, the truth. Now, 40 years later, that secret was out. And Jonathan wanted Edward cut out of the inheritance entirely. Jonathan's lawyers argued that the trust explicitly said it was for Stuart's children. Since Edward wasn't biologically Stuart's child, he had no claim to the money. $10 million was on the line. And Edward was about to lose everything. But Edward wasn't going down without a fight. His legal team made a powerful argument. Yes, Edward wasn't Stuart's biological son. But Stuart had raised him. Loved him. Treated him as his own for his entire life. When Stuart wrote "children" in that trust, he meant Edward and Jonathan, not just his biological offspring. Intent mattered more than DNA. And then, Edward did something shocking. In a move that stunned the courtroom, he turned the tables on Jonathan. Edward's lawyers argued that if the court was going to use DNA to determine inheritance, then maybe they should test Jonathan too. After all, if Patricia had one affair, who's to say there wasn't another? It was a nuclear option. Edward was essentially saying, if I'm going down, you're coming with me. Now the court faced an impossible question: what does "children" really mean? Does it mean biological children only? Or does it mean the children a parent raises, loves, and claims as their own, regardless of DNA? This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about what defines a family. After months of legal battles, the court finally reached a verdict. And it shocked everyone. Edward won. Despite not being Stuart's biological son, the court ruled that he was still entitled to his full share of the inheritance. Here's why. The judge determined that when Stuart created the trust and wrote the word "children," he meant it in the social and parental sense, not the strictly biological sense. Stuart had raised Edward as his son. Edward had grown up believing Stuart was his father. And nothing in the trust documents suggested Stuart ever intended to exclude him. The court essentially said, family is more than DNA. It's about the relationships we build and the love we share. Jonathan's gamble had failed spectacularly. Not only did he lose the case, but he'd also destroyed his relationship with his brother forever. The family was shattered. Edward walked away with his share of the millions, but at what cost? The brother who had raised doubts about his legitimacy. The revelation that his entire childhood had been built on a lie. The knowledge that his biological father was a stranger. Money can't fix that. The Marcus case teaches us something important: the law doesn't always follow biology. Courts recognize that families are complex, messy, and built on more than just genetics. Stuart Marcus raised Edward as his son. And in the eyes of the law, that made Edward his true child, DNA be damned. But it also shows us how money can poison even the closest relationships. Would Jonathan have demanded that DNA test if there were no millions at stake? We'll never know. What do you think? Did the court make the right decision? Should Edward have been entitled to the inheritance, or should blood have been the deciding factor? Let me know in the comments below. If you want more shocking legal battles like this one, subscribe to the docket. We bring you real cases with unbelievable outcomes every week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next verdict.